Instagram teen accounts have automatic protections for what teens see and who can contact them, plus time management tools. And Instagram will continue adding built-in safety features to help create age-appropriate experiences. Learn more about teen accounts and Instagram's ongoing work to protect teens online at instagram.com/teenaccounts.
Welcome to 100 Songs That Define Heavy Metal. I'm your host, Brian Slagel. I am the CEO of Metal Blade Records, home to bands like Amon Amarth, Cannibal Corpse, Fates Morning, Killswitch Engage, and Slayer, many others. The next time you're in Las Vegas, or if you currently live in Las Vegas or the Las Vegas area, you need to visit the Metal Blade Museum. Now, not only are there artifacts from Metal Blade artists like Metallica, Slayer, Cannibal Corpse, Gwar, Lizzie Borden, there's also artifacts from bands that we had something to do with as well, like Guns N' Roses, Megadeth, Alice in Chains, Deep Purple, Thin Lizzy, Alice Cooper, all sorts of stuff. So it's a really great metal museum. It's located right near the Strip in Las Vegas. Also, our retail store is also now in the museum. So you can go pick up your Metal Blade vinyl, CDs, collectibles, shirts, all sorts of cool stuff. Just go to metalblade.com/museum for all the details. We're going to talk about one of the most legendary songs ever, maybe the most legendary singer in heavy metal of all time, Mr. Ronnie James Dio. It's about time we got to talk about him, and we're going to talk with his wife and manager, the great Wendy Dio, so that's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to bring back Ryan Williams again to talk about the production part because he's done so well here. But first up, as always, Mr. Martin Popoff.
All right, Dio, Holy Diver, absolutely immense song in the history of heavy metal. This is the second track on Ronnie's debut album. Of course, Ronnie is coming into this band from being a 50s kind of rock and roller crooner, more like a crooner, and then through Elf, and then through Rainbow, and then he arrives in Black Sabbath for a couple of big albums. It really rejuvenates the band. Then they've got the live album. They have a Falling Out, Live Evil. Ronnie and Vinny head over to Dio. Jimmy Bain's there. Vivian Campbell from Sweet Savage. So yeah, this is a May 25th, 1983. He's got his deal with Warner Brothers, which is very cool. So he's recording for Sabbath's label. And, there was a stipulation in there that he would have a label deal, and he quickly got off to the races. There was excitement around this band right away because it's just a really high quality heavy metal album. Holy Diver went double platinum eventually, number 56 on Billboard. But yeah, so this is the first of these big epics. You've got The Last in Line. It's kind of a sister track to that, or the first of these ones. It's got the version of a heavy metal gallop, a slow gallop, which became a great Dio trademark, and it became a power metal trademark later on. But actually starts with about a minute 20 of kind of spooky sounds. In this song, because it is slow, this is where you really get Vinny Appice shining. He loves playing these slow songs with a lot of spaces and these really tasty fills at the end of the bars. And yeah, Ronnie produces this record. We've got Ronnie with Angelo Arcuri in there, assisted by Ray Leonard. They're recording at Sound City in Los Angeles, where Ronnie and Wendy are. They're set up there. And this just becomes an absolutely monumental song, with that curious kind of malevolent title, Holy Diver, and then the cover with the devil, Murray, drowning the priest in chains. Or is he rescuing him? This is a little bit like that Motley Crue Shout at the Devil thing. What is going on here? And Ronnie's always got these cool enigmatic explanations of this. But yeah, the Holy Diver is literally the priest wrapped in chains in the water. Yeah, big epic song, super important. This album had all sorts of great stuff on it, like Straight Through the Heart and Stand Up and Shout and Rainbow in the Dark. And it really put Ronnie on a great track, and then The Last in Line was maybe even a better album, but both of them are absolute heavy metal classics, and it's great to see that this is now double platinum. So there you go, Dio, Holy Diver, May 25th, 1983.
Thanks, Martin. Always great to hear from you. And of course, Martin has written over 150, I think it's 150 now, books about hard rock and heavy metal, including several about Dio and Black Sabbath and Rainbow when Dio was in all of those bands. Good stuff as always.
Ryan Reynolds here from Mint Mobile. I don't know if you knew this, but anyone can get the same premium wireless for $15 a month plan that I've been enjoying. It's not just for celebrities. So do like I did and have one of your assistant's assistants switch you to Mint Mobile today. I'm told it's super easy to do at mintmobile.com/switch.
Upfront payment of $45 for 3-month plan, equivalent to $15 per month required. Intro rate first 3 months only, then full price plan options available. Taxes and fees extra. See full terms at mintmobile.com.
And we welcome back a man who's been in a bunch of bands. He's produced a bunch of bands and engineered a bunch of bands, and currently is A&R for Metal Blade Records. Mr. Ryan Williams, how are you, sir?
Hey, Brian, doing very well. Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. It's a lot of fun to have you on.
Of course.
You do a lot of research. I like that.
It's fun. It's fun getting into these albums a little deeper and finding things out that I didn't know. I'm actually enjoying it quite a bit.
Yeah, that's the one fun thing for me too. Like, talking to everybody, like I learned things, like especially Martin Popoff, of course, he's, he knows everything about everything. So I always learn stuff from him. So it's super cool. Anyway, Dio Holy Diver. This is an interesting one because Ronnie produced it.
Yep.
Of course, recorded the legendary Sound City.
Yes.
And Angelo Arcuri, who's a very good engineer, engineered it. But two things that stand out for me on this is, number one is that being the first thing. And the second thing being, this does not sound like your typical 80s metal record. I love the way it sounds. I listened to it the other day. It sounds so clean, and the drums have a really good tone to it. There's no big snare, reverb, and a lot of the things you hear in the 80s, it's more of a kind of toned down sort of thing, but everything sounds really, really good. And I'm going to guess that the big part of this is because the previous 5 albums Ronnie did, the 2 with Sabbath and the three with Rainbow, were all produced by the greatest producer of all time, in my opinion, Martin Birch. So I'm sure he learned many things from there. But I always surprised at how good this sounds and how it doesn't sound like it was mixed and recorded in the 80s.
You're totally right. The first thing that I noticed listening to this is it's just bright. It's clear. Every instrument has its own place in the mix. They all sound great, but they don't step on each other. There's great separation between the instruments. So you can really, if you want to listen to the guitar, you can hear the guitar, you can hear the bass super clear, you can hear the drums super clear. Ronnie's sitting right on top, but they mesh together like a puzzle. And this is something that to this day, producers and bands and mixers struggle with, is you get all these instruments sounding great on their own, and then you put them together and, the bass is stepping on the guitar, or the guitar is stepping on the drums, or whatever it is. And these have their own little spot. If you were to solo them individually, they might not sound amazing, but when they all come together, it's just incredible. And the fact that Ronnie had never technically produced an album before this was like his first one. And the engineer, Angelo, had never really worked on this type of music too much before this either. And I think they came into the studio kind of without a lot of preconceived notions. Ronnie obviously knew what he wanted. But they just went by instinct. And there's a really great, one of the things I did for research on this, in 2005, Rock Candy, they did a remaster reissue of the album, and there's an audio interview with Ronnie that he did at that time. And it's really great. He talks about, the time at Sound City. He talks about finding Vivian and going to the UK to recruit people. And there's just, if anyone's interested in this album and you want a deeper dive, look for that interview. It is on YouTube. So that's a really great resource.
Yeah. And obviously this was a huge record for Ronnie in his career, first time stepping out solo. He had a deal with Warner's to do a solo record when he was in Black Sabbath anyway. But I think there was I know for a fact there was a lot of trepidation doing this because, coming from these 2 legendary bands, and all of a sudden he's stepping out on his own and doing his own solo thing. And, Wendy will talk about it a lot as well, but I mean, they mortgaged their house and everything to put this whole thing together. And it obviously, it's like an all-time classic. Again, when I looked at the production credits, because I kind of forgot about it, I knew Ronnie did it, but I was like, that's really interesting that it sounds this good because, like you said, none of these. I mean, Ronnie never produced anything before, and Angelo, great engineer, but he hadn't really done a lot of metal stuff before. And you have this pristine sounding, but really almost perfect sounding metal record, which is pretty amazing. And A lot of times when singers produce records, the vocals tend to be very loud. They're certainly loud on here, but they don't take away from anything else.
It's perfect. It sits right on top, but it's not over the top loud. I don't know. I give a lot of credit also to just Sound City in general. I mean, it's a magical place. I was lucky enough to go there when they did their kind of public reopening in 2017. And the fact that studio is still there and you can kind of go check it out and it's basically the same as it was back then is really cool. There's definitely some magic in those walls. A few of the interesting little tidbits that Ronnie mentioned in that interview was that they kind of built a drum room around Vinny out of like plywood. And I know that this is something that Metallica has done in the past too, to really get, because most drum rooms are kind of a mix between reflections and absorption, and there's some reverberation, but it's not too crazy. But if you want a really lively sound, you kind of have to put up your own walls. So that's what they did. And they didn't do it out of knowing exactly what they were doing. They just kind of went by instinct. And I feel like that's what a lot of this album was, is going off your ears and instinct. And like you said, there's not a lot of extra effects. There's not a huge like 80s snare. It's just really great tones and amazing performances. I think that goes a really long way.
Yeah, 100%. And look, Jimmy, Vinny, and Ronnie were all very seasoned musicians, pros. They've done tons and tons of records.
Exactly.
So they knew what it's like to be in the studio. And I know Ronnie, gave everybody some room. And then Vivian he's just a virtuoso guitar player. I mean, he was, part of Sweet Savage, which New Wave British heavy metal band, and their single was probably in my top 5 best things that came out in that New Wave British heavy metal. They're so good. So you could just tell that he's, even though he's only recorded a couple of things before this, I mean, he's just virtuoso guitar player. So that's the main thing too, is, anytime we talk about this a lot on the show, but anybody that's a producer engineer knows, like, if the band sounds really good going into the studio, it's much easier to make a good sounding record because you don't have to do a lot. When a band comes in, it's kind of not so great, then yeah, that's trouble. So you could tell these guys just sounded good anyway.
Totally. I think they were really jiving with each other and having fun. And I think the vibes were just really good from all the stories that I hear. And that goes a long way too. When you're having fun and being creative and, you're not taking yourself too seriously, I think it's just easy to kind of let the music flow out. And that sounds like, maybe it's cliche, but this is one of those like lightning in a bottle, like right people, right time, just everything came together just perfectly.
Yeah, 100%. And you made the comment earlier, which is always really important with metal records, is getting the differences between the guitar, the bass, and the kick drums, because they're all living in that same world. And that's the real difficult spot to get that right. And they really got that, I mean, so right, because you're right. You can hear every single instrument perfectly, which is, you can't say that with a lot of metal records.
Totally. And they mesh together great. Like the bass is a really great tone, but it reinforces the guitar, and it kind of like they play together really well. And I don't know if that just happened by accident. I'm sure it didn't, but that's a magical thing. And like I said, people are still trying to chase that to this day,
Yeah, 100%. And to do it in the 80s too, where it would be so easy to overdo, especially on the drums, the reverb and all the other stuff, because everybody was doing there. And it's even on the vocals, but this is all really, really clean, which again kind of blew me away. I haven't listened to, I hate, everybody's got a remix or remaster or whatever.
Yes.
And there's remasters of this record, obviously. And it's hard for me, and I think it's hard for anybody, when you listen, you're so used to something sounding a certain way, and then somebody tweaks it a little bit. Sometimes it can be a little bit better, but a lot of times it's not. I purposely haven't listened to, I think I might have listened to one. I have all the reissues of this record, so I probably listened to one or two of the remasterings, but it's almost a perfect record, so you can't beat perfection, right?
Yeah, I did actually check out some of the I know Joe Barresi did a remix, and
who's amazing,
who's great. I love him. I just saw him a few months ago. Really cool guy, and it sounds great, but it doesn't, and it's different, but it doesn't really improve on anything. Like you said, it's already there, and I think people get attached to the way something sounds, and you could remix this 1,000 times and I would probably still prefer the original every time, you know?
Yeah, it's pretty rare that there's a remix that I've heard that I like better than the original. And, even
Yeah.
even at Metal Blade, we've remixed things here and there because the band wasn't happy, or maybe we weren't happy and we had a chance to remix it. But it just, you lose, even though the original mixes may not have been perfect, you lose the whatever the magic that was there. I've always wanted to go back and remix the first Armored Saint record because I like the raw tracks were so great, and the mix ended up kind of taking the heaviness out of it more or less. But they redid some of those songs, and while they sound really good, it's still not quite the same as the original stuff. So it's really hard to do that.
And this is basically Ronnie and Angelo mixing. There's no one on as an additional mixer. Nobody came in. They didn't send it out somewhere. They didn't bring in someone who's like a famous mixer. They just did it themselves. And it's impressive, honestly, all these years later.
I'm certain that, working with Martin Birch for that many albums and that much, he had to learn something from there. And it kind of does have that, because you listen to all of Martin Birch's mixes, he, even in the 80s, he didn't get caught up in that, crazy snare sound thing. If you just listen to the Maiden stuff that he did. So I think a lot of that, there's definitely some influence there for sure, because you can't work with a great producer like that many times with a bunch of different musicians and not learn something from that, which obviously he put to good use.
Totally. And even on Ronnie's vocals, like some of the Sabbath stuff, there's like a lot of reverb and it's very polished. And this, it's like there's not a lot of reverb on his vocals. It's just great takes right in your face. And they did it right. Just raw. And again,
he's got complete control of it now. I'm sure that some of the sounds on the earlier records had a lot to do with the guitar players that he was working with, which was, look, he worked with two of the most legendary guitar players ever, Richie Blackmore and Tony Iommi.
Right.
Those guys also have huge personalities, and I'm sure that's why, things didn't work out as long as it could have been here. And even, we even know the history with him and Vivian, and so, guitar players, man. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, they also talked about, when him and Vinny were looking for guitar players, they were in LA, and a lot of the LA guitar players were into the shred stuff at the time. And, they wanted to be Van Halen, and he wanted someone with a little more taste and class. And that's why, they went over to England to look.
Yeah. Quick story about that. When Yngwie first moved to LA, myself and my good friend John Cornarins were kind of helping him out. John more so than I did. And we had Ronnie come to a show, Steeler show that when Yngwie was just in Steeler. He came to the show because he was looking for guitar players, obviously. Oh, wow. But at that point, Yngwie was he was a carbon copy of Richie Blackmore. He was like, the stage moves, the look, everything was totally Richie Blackmore. So I could see where Ronnie would be like, okay, great guitar player, but a little too much like a guitar player I worked with before. Right. And the shredding thing too. And I mean, clearly they got Vivian, who was the perfect move, really.
Classy. Yeah. Just very classy, very tasteful playing. I think that's what they were looking for.
Yeah, they did everything right. The production's right, the band was right, and clearly it's one of the most important, biggest metal records of all time. So it worked out all good for all around, I think.
Totally amazing record.
Awesome, man. Well, thanks as always for doing this. Much appreciated.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
Hey everyone, do you like quizzes? Do you like Metal Blade? Do you like trivia? Well, if you like all of those three, Metal Mondays is for you. Every Monday we put out a new quiz that you guys can go in and answer the questions. You can win prizes, you can get discounts, all sorts of really fun stuff. Metallica's doing it, and now Metal Blade is doing it as well. Go to metalblade.com, search for it there, Metal Mondays, and check it out.
LinkedIn is pretty great at a lot of things, like helping you tap into the latest trends and insights in your field. We cannot stop your coworker from tapping her pencil. LinkedIn can help you find new jobs that align with your career goals. We cannot help you find the source of that weird smell in the office fridge. Ew. And while we can't stop your coworkers from bringing their hobbies into the office, LinkedIn can help you bring your career to the next level. LinkedIn is the network that works for you.
Very excited to welcome this next person in. Manager of Ronnie James Dio, still doing incredible work with the Dio Cancer Fund, among many other things. Wendy Dio, how are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much for doing this. It's an honor for me to talk to you doing this thing. And of course, anytime I have a chance to talk about the great Ronnie James Dio, I will never pass that up. So, of course, talking about the great song Holy Diver. By the way, I think by the end of the 100 songs, I'm pretty sure that Ronnie will be on more than any other singer, considering Rainbow, Black Sabbath, and of course Dio, because they're all so amazing. When Ronnie and you guys were kind of figuring out what to do after he left Black Sabbath, did you always have it in the back of your mind that, Ronnie should be doing solo stuff at some point?
Well, I had gotten him a recording deal while he was with Black Sabbath, and he was not intending to leave, but to maybe do something in between when they weren't working. But then it came that he left the band, and he had written 2 songs actually, Holy Diver and Don't Talk to Strangers. They had actually been written for Black Sabbath while he was in Black Sabbath, but they became his beginning of the Dio years.
Yeah, 2 amazing songs. So when he's writing, is he writing the music as well, or just the lyrics, or a bit of both?
Oh yeah, everything.
Oh wow.
People think that Ronnie's just a lyricist. He's not. He writes music as well. He played trumpet for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
Played guitar, played bass. Well, played bass in Elf. He would sit and write songs watching sports with his acoustic guitar on his lap. That's how he would always write watching baseball or football, because he said that gave him inspiration, but it wasn't stealing somebody else's music.
Interesting. That's interesting. Yeah, there's so many singers that also play guitar that don't play instruments on stage. There's countless of them, and obviously they write songs and stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
So by the time he started to think about, okay, I'm going to do a solo record, obviously Vinny Abbassy made sense because he's been working with Vinny forever. Where did Vivian Campbell come in from? I know where he came from, but was it like
Jimmy found him.
Jimmy Bain?
Actually, they went to London. Jimmy Bain said, "Let's listen to this guy." Yeah.
Yeah, he was in a band called Sweet Savage that had I'm a curator of the new wave of British heavy metal stuff, and I have like everything. And he was in a band called Sweet Savage that had one of the best singles of any band coming from that scene. So yeah, pretty talented guy. So this song in particular, is there like a memory that you have when like he was like writing it or recording it, or when you first heard it?
We worked on the artwork together with it, and the song is basically about what the artwork shows is like a priest being drowned by a monster, but you never know why is the monster bad and why is the priest good, just because of how they look. And that's the whole thing about Ronnie was he was always for the down, the person that was too fat, too short, too whatever, and because he said you never know what somebody's inside. The outside doesn't matter, it's the inside that matters. And just because the priest is being drowned by the monster, maybe the monster's a good guy and the priest is a bad guy. And why is he drowning him? Maybe because of all the things that in the Catholic community at that time, where the priests were abusing kids and stuff. This was a message.
Yeah, and it's a great visual. But of course, the other great thing is, back in the day, still today, we like to push boundaries and push the envelope, which is always a good thing, and that's one of the things I love about metal. But Ronnie, as a lyricist, to me, was one of the, not just in metal, but I think one of the best lyricists ever. Like his songs were so interesting, the lines are so interesting, and sometimes you could tell, like for example, Light in the Black, you kind of knew what that was about. But a lot of stuff, and it's true of really any great lyricist, is they have it in their head what it is about, but it's kind of up to the listener to figure it out. But so many great lines. I mean, I know he's a very well-read and super smart guy and stuff, but is there any sort of magic that was happening when he's writing all these incredible lyrics?
He used to read a lot of science fiction books. Whatever he was writing about, it was always like that somebody could interpret their own feeling of what the song was about. As you said, he knew what the song was about, but he would like people to interpret what they thought.
Yeah, and there's so many great songs on this record. I just remember, I'm obviously a huge Dio fan when it came out, but we're all kind of wondering, okay, it's a solo record, what's going to be like? And of course, it's actually pretty incredible. But the lyrics, speaking of lyrics, the lyrics on "Don't Talk to Strangers" for me are some of the best lyrics he ever wrote too. Just the whole thing is just so awesome, and there's so many different meanings to it and stuff, which I love that when you're listening to a song and it makes you think. you have to think about things. You go, oh, okay, that's interesting. And same thing with Holy Diver. Really, so many of his songs that he did, and Holy Diver specifically. When he was in the studio, when all you guys were in the studio making this record, I always like to ask, like, when you're in there, did it feel like something special is going on?
No, I don't think so. I think Ronnie was really shocked, quite honestly, when it came out and it did so well. He always put his 100% into whatever he did. He was a perfectionist. He was writing and just recording and to see what's coming out.
Just doing the work to do the work, basically.
Yeah, basically. If you look behind me, there's the original artwork of Holy Diver right there. Gene Hunter did that.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
It's always interesting artwork because we talk about it a lot on the podcast because the artwork is so important, especially for metal. And sometimes the art is the same size as the album. Sometimes it's 5 feet tall and you have to shrink it down. So that's a really detailed painting. It's interesting that it was done basically the same size as the record.
Yeah, and bigger. It's much bigger, actually. It's a very large piece.
Yeah,
very large.
That's pretty spectacular.
Ronnie always loved album cover art. He was very, he was very sad when CDs came in when cassettes came in, first of all. He said you don't get to see the artwork, and the artwork is not the exciting part of opening the record.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I grew up in the 70s, so artwork to me is always albums were the best because you can see the art. And I think that's part of the reason why they've come back as well, is because a lot of kids want to see the art and want to hold it and see it be big and it's cool, and not some little, tiny postage stamp on a computer or whatever it is.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. Holy Diver, when he first left Sabbath and wrote, he wrote, as I said, Holy Diver and Don't Talk to Strangers for Sabbath, and then he wrote We Rock by himself, all the words, all the music, everything. But it was like we didn't know what was going to happen. We didn't know how it was going to be received. We actually mortgaged our house to get the money to put everything out. It was a big stage set and so on. And I remember all that. I remember how detailed everything was and how so involved I was in that because, we didn't have the big money behind it at that time.
Reading his book, by the way, which thank you for putting that out. It's a pretty incredible book. And I remember he was very, very excited and happy about the success of this. And I think the book more or less ends when he's headlining Madison Square Garden in New York, which as a solo artist, of course, that's, one of the holy grails of places to play, right? And for him to do it as a solo artist, I know meant a lot to him.
Because we were offered a lot more money to play Meadowlands. But Ronnie said, no, I want to play Madison Square Garden. As when he was, trying to get a record deal with Elf even, he would drive the 200 miles from Cortland, New York to New York and paces up and down to try and get into the record labels, to try and get a record deal. And they always used to look at Madison Square Gardens and go, one day I'm going to play there. One day my name's going to be up there. He played it twice, once for Dio and once for Sabbath.
Yeah, that's amazing. It's believe it and it'll happen, right? Or see it in your mind, it'll happen. All that sort of psychological stuff. Yeah, pretty spectacular. And this record, just the whole record is so great. And I mean, the band was so good. And I remember the live shows. What was the? Because Ronnie always had a really big live show for all his solo stuff. Like there's all sorts of things, dragons and all sorts of crazy stuff going on. What was the motivation behind having a big show like that? Because not a lot of bands were really doing that in the early 80s.
Ronnie was always into like magical, mystical stuff, and he always wanted to do something like that. He wanted to be different because his songs are not love songs. They're all about magic and rainbows and whatever, and he wanted to bring that to the stage set as well. And as he always used to say, I want to give the kids something more than just the music.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I grew up Kiss and Alice Cooper were two of my favorite bands, so they obviously had big shows. So I like the big shows. I remember talking to Ronnie at Iron Maiden show at the Forum in LA, and a couple of people around us were starting to talk about a couple things. And I said to him, because I went to England in 1984, and I saw Dio twice with Queen's Rock opening, and then 4 days later I saw Iron Maiden twice. And that was when he had the Egyptian theme stage, and then Iron Maiden also had an Egyptian theme stage. So when I saw Maiden, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the same thing. So I asked Ronnie, like, did you guys know that it was really similar? He said he had no idea.
No idea at all. No idea. That Bruce had the same like visions that Ronnie did, that they wanted to give something back more for the things. When we did Sacred Heart, that was like that stage set was enormous, and everything with the
Oh
lasers
yeah.
and the drawbridge and all this stuff was absolute. The fire-breathing dragon, 18 feet dragon. I mean, that actually moved. It was it was a big. I think we had like 9 trucks or something at that time.
Yeah, that was a spectacular tour. Where is all that stuff? Do you keep any of that stuff, or just who knows?
Oh, I did keep it for many, many years. I think as Ron has been gone 16 years now. I think about maybe 5, 6 years ago, I did a big auction at Julian's.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. We the dragon's head went. I don't know where it went. Yeah, but I do know that we were in a few years ago. We were in Panama, and we went into the Hard Rock Cafe there. And my father had given Ronnie an acoustic guitar years and years ago, right? And we put it in the auction, whatever. And there was this guitar, and it said on it, Ronnie Dio's father-in-law's guitar.
Oh, nice. That's a good place to have
It's
it.
so funny in Panama, yeah. But I finally said, I can't deal with all this stuff. What am I going to do with it all?
Yeah.
And so I figured, a lot of it went to museums and different things, and kids who wanted a piece of Ronnie.
Yeah, good. That stuff should be seen.
Oh, absolutely. I didn't part with a lot of things like, of course, Holy Diver album cover, the artwork, original artwork. I want to go to a museum one day, and we've been talking with Todd about a museum. And there's a lot of things like, things that I wouldn't part with that could go into a museum. It's Grammy and, a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much of that stuff. And I'm a big proponent of that, because we don't have a heavy metal museum anywhere, which, would be nice.
Yeah.
Someday, hopefully, maybe we did do a Metal Blade museum in Vegas, and so that was a lot of fun. Yeah, it's a lot of fun to do.
I'm working right now with the City of West Hollywood and the Chamber of Commerce, Todd Singerman, Motorhead's manager, and Mikey from the Rainbow, and several other people. And we've been working for about 5 years on doing like Gorman's Chinese with the stars on the sidewalk, with a musician's thing going from where the old record store used to be, Tower Records used to be, up to Doheny on both sides of the street.
Oh, that'd be amazing.
And we've been meeting, we have meetings about every month, and we finally got all the permits from the city, and it should come to fruition with the next couple of years.
Oh, that'll be awesome. That'll be really awesome.
Yeah.
One interesting thing about Ronnie was he was like one of the nicest people on earth, and he remembered everybody's names. And it's one of those things where I don't know that there's anybody, fans or people in the business that didn't have nice things to say about him. And he was so nice to everybody else. Like, what was behind that? Because he's like, I'd say most people in this business, you talk about the 5 nicest people that are artists, and Ronnie is always in that conversation.
He loved people. And he loved talking to them, and he loved to know what they were about rather than what he was about. And he honestly loved his fans more than anything. They came number 1. I think his dogs came number 2, and me probably number 3. No, he generally loved people, and he loved what they had to say. He had an incredible memory for names. He wouldn't see someone, a fan would, say his kid's name or something, and like 2 years later they come down and he'd say, "Oh, how's your kid so and so?" It was absolutely amazing, his memory.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't remember anybody's name, so I don't know how anybody can do that. And I saw him do it so many times to people that he probably met once or twice, and we're all kind of like, "What's going on here?"
Yeah, no, unbelievable. But he always made people feel special. He always made them feel like they were the only person. And he actually told Lizzie Hale, she asked him some advice once when they were opening for Ronnie, and he said, you always remember to be nice to the fan and talk to them and stuff, because you won't remember that at all, but they're going to remember that for the rest of their life.
Yeah, 100%. 100%. A wise man he was, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, the Holy Diver record and the song in particular have become, kind of the staple of the Dio catalog. Again, when it first came out, I know you guys weren't expecting anything huge, but that must have been really satisfying, though, just to have the first solo record and have it be so successful. And then, this song is, there's so many great Dio songs, obviously, but this one's kind of the one that seems to be, in certainly in everybody's top 2 or 3 Dio songs.
Absolutely. Yeah, but I mean, I remember when all the hard work we did and everything, and seeing the show festival. I think the first show was in Antioch, in this place where it was a barn. I thought, who's going to come here? And it was sold out. And I had goosebumps when they went on stage, because it was just, I knew then that it was going to happen. And then we did, I think, about 5 or 6 shows with opening for Aerosmith. Then they decided that we should do shows on our own, and did Santa Monica Civic. It sold out in 5 minutes, so I put a 6 o'clock show in and 9 o'clock show in.
Oh, wow.
And poor Ronnie had to do both those, and then he did an in-store after that. That was a workhorse.
I remember those days of double shows. Like Kiss used to do that a lot too, where they played 2 sets. It was like, well, you think about that today, it's like, how is that possible?
Right, yeah, no. But I think it was such an exciting time. Everything was new and exciting, and finally Ronnie was in control, and it was just a really fun time.
Yeah, I can imagine. I mean, just the time frame when the music was coming out, because that was just kind of when metal was kind of coming back after, disco took everything over for a while, and then all of a sudden it came back. That always seems to happen when the calendar change, the decades change. It always seems like every 10 years.
Yeah, every 10 years.
Something happens.
Every 10 years it comes around again. But there's always those fans that always stay with you, that support, I mean, Mama's been gone 16 years.
It's crazy.
We've still got 2.5 million people on her Facebook. I mean, it's amazing. Those fans stay there forever. And a lot of them are the same fans, and then they've got kids, and their kids are fans, which is great. Because it's the first time, I think, ever in history where the kids are listening to their parents' music.
Yeah, that's good parenting on my behalf, I think. That's what I say. Why do you think he's endured for this long and still remains maybe as popular now as he's ever been?
Well, his music is different. I mean, it's heavy metal, but it's melodic. Ronnie was such a nice person to his fans as well. I mean, they love him. He loved them. They love him. But I think the music, these were innovators of music. Now, you can only invent the wheel so many times. So the poor kids now, it's hard for them to reinvent new music, because it's been done by Black Sabbath, by Led Zeppelin, by Deep Purple. I mean, all those bands, Judas Priest, all those bands are like getting to not be there anymore. And people are realizing what great music that was. Because, I think the last people to come with really great music with metal was probably Metallica and Tool, and those bands. They're great music, but what do we get? The poor kids are trying to make music, but they just have to copy what has already been before.
Yeah, and that's a large reason doing this podcast, is kind of explaining to people where all this stuff came from. Especially the 70s, a lot of that stuff, people look at it today, that's not that really heavy. Well, that laid the groundwork for everything that's happened in the last 40 years basically. So it's really important. But there are some good new bands out there. I'll throw Ghost out there. They're doing very well.
Ghost is great. Yeah, no, Ghost is
there's still good stuff. But you're right, it's you can't do anything. I suppose death metal is probably the most like different form of things, because the vocals are so different. But yeah, it's just heavy music, and there's not a whole lot you can do. Just reconfigure it and try to make it more interesting.
Yeah, because so many of the greats are going away, which is really, really sad. I mean, every day you hear somebody else is gone, and it's very, very sad.
Yeah, there's new ones coming up, so I'm very hopeful about that for sure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Dio Cancer Fund, because you do such amazing work there, and there's so much going on. Tell us like the latest about what's happening over there.
Okay, so now we're working for Rock for Ronnie, which is on May 31st at the Autry Museum, which is in Burbank, just opposite. It's actually part of Griffith Park, but it's right opposite where the zoo is. And we're working on that. We've got a great lineup. We got Lita Ford, who's always so gracious. She will bring her band and play. We've got Led Zeppelin, which is a tribute Led Zeppelin band. They're really great. We've got Charles Jason Miller, who's always supporting with us. We have Dio Disciples, of course. And we have Eddie Trunk's All-Star Band, which we never know who's going to show up there. I mean, there's so many people who showed up.
But Eddie won't be singing, though, so don't worry.
No, Eddie will be the host as always. And we've got some new bands as well. We've got a bunch of little kids that are 16 years old that are going to open. They're called Saints for Sinners. They're a hard rock band, and they're only 16. He's a great guitar player. We've got A Whole Lot of Rosie, which is a all-girl AC/DC cover band. And then we've got an old band from the past called Legs Diamond.
Oh,
If
yes.
you remember them. Yeah, and they're playing as well.
We did a record with them actually in the 90s of all things. Love Legs Diamond.
They're playing. So I hope you're going to come down anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we have a really good lineup. I'm really pleased with it. And we're already selling quite a lot of tickets. It's already on sale. And we're really happy. We have a lot of auction going on. We have a silent auction, live auction. We have vendors there, food trucks. It's always an exciting time to raise money for cancer. And we're working with Dr. Wong. We've been working with him for about 5 or 6 years. We give him a donation every time we do bowling and we do the Rock for Ronnie. And he's working on a saliva test that hopefully will come to pass where you can go to your local pharmacy, just like a COVID test, and you pick up the test and you can put swab in your mouth and send it back. And it's only for pancreatic and stomach cancers because those are killers. You don't know you've got them till the very last minute. This will tell you early detection, or if you don't have it, or what stage it's at. And we're really, really happy with Dr. Wong. He's amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, and thank you for all the work you do for that. It's really great. Of course, there's always the Dio annual bowling thing and a whole bunch of other stuff. So yeah, it's really awesome. And also that certainly helps keep Ronnie's name out there too, which is
absolutely
extremely important.
That's my mission in life, to keep his legend, his music, and his legend alive. Absolutely.
Well, you're doing a great job of that, and thank you so much for doing this. I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate you asking me. Take care, and I hope to see you soon. Okay, take care. Love you.
You too. That's going to do it. What an honor to talk to Wendy Dio about the great Ronnie Dio. She's so great and doing amazing work with the Dio Cancer Fund. Please go to diocancerfund.org to get information and donate if you can. Also, thanks to Ryan Williams again for coming in talking about production. Mr. Martin Popoff, as always, great job. Lizzie Borden does our theme song, and the producer that puts this whole wrap together, Mr. Christian Blatt. We'll see you guys next episode.